Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey Beverly Hills 90210 fans! Are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code? With your hosts, Charles Rosan.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Harry
All this
Mullin.
heinous thing about the real person, and we going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferrero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush-worthy.
Like so many special guests. And all your questions. Live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Beverly Hills 90210 show. It's Pete, and we're breaking our normal format this week. Last week, we lost Joey Tata, our beloved Nat, and we thought it would be appropriate to do a show that was extraordinary, right? Like something that was really interesting and different and super show-like. And so we decided to team up with 90210 OMG, Jennie and Tori's podcast, and do a simulcast of a Zoom and a conversation with some of the people that you love the most, talking about Joey Tata, talking about Denise Daus, and of course, Jessica Klein, who we absolutely love. We're going to expand on those conversations at some point, but this is the Zoom conversation and subsequent conversation I had with Brian. This is that tribute to Joey. And I want to acknowledge that a donation was made to the Alzheimer's Association. And we're thinking about Kelly Tata. We're thinking about his family and friends. And of course, thinking about Jessica Klein's family and friends as well. And this is an important episode for so many reasons, but mainly to get everybody together. When I first started this podcast, I had no idea that I would be in the rooms with the people that I'm in the rooms with. But I am just so humble and grateful to be in this conversation and totally thankful for it. So here is that, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Well, we are all here together again, which is really great, but I wish it was for different circumstances. We're joined by Matthew, Gabrielle, and Lindsay, and Pete, of course.
Jason's coming on.
And yeah, we have Jason coming in soon. But thanks, guys, for all coming together.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's good to see everybody again. You know, being the host of the other show, the Beverly Hills 90210 show with Chuck and Larry, it's an honor to be here with all of you. So, you know, it's felt like we lost a family member for fans, I think. And for you guys, it is actually true, like you lost a family member in a lot of ways. So I'm curious for you, Jennie and Tori, like, how is this going for you? This has been a weird time period with a lot of loss, and everybody's getting older and things are happening.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we wanted to mention that there are two podcasts, 90210 podcasts. So Pete, you guys have the 90210 Beverly Hills Show podcast. Jen and I have 90210 OMG. And it really did feel right to kind of merge together and do a simulcast and kind of be with everyone as family and celebrate Joey's life today, and speak about him, all our amazing memories that we have, and share some laughs. And it would only be right to all do it together. So that's why we're all here.
And it would only be right to, come together for a good thing. Let's do that. We're making everybody here on the Zoom podcast. I don't know what we should call it. We're all going to be part of a donation to the Alzheimer's Association in memory of our beloved Nat Busio.
Yes.
So you asked, when I heard the news, gosh, it was like, it felt as if a family member had died and I was so far away and I couldn't, that feeling of it doesn't feel real. And it just was really solemn day, and couldn't really explain the like energy that I was feeling, but it was definitely something that shook me a lot.
Tori, what about you? I mean, you're very close to Joe. I mean, you had a lot of scenes together and stuff, and I'm sure you were very. I read your thing that you wrote on Instagram, was beautiful. How are you feeling?
I mean, it definitely wasn't unexpected. We know he was suffering for years, and that we knew this was the inevitable. He was 85, but you still didn't want it to happen. You wanted to believe that there was more time, maybe one last hug you could get in, something like that. So it was still really shocking. And he definitely was like a dad. He was like that fun dad. I said in my Instagram post that he reminded me a lot of my dad. He was very funny and body, and but would always was a hugger, and just, he was great.
You felt old school, right? Like,
Yeah.
he was the OG. Like, it was old Hollywood with Joey. We just got joined by Jason. Hey, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hi guys, how is everyone? Nice to see all your faces, guys.
Hi.
You too,
Good
man.
to see you.
Yeah, I wish it was under better circumstances.
For sure. Man, I feel like you worked a lot with him. You had, I mean, we talk about sometimes in this show, right? Like the partnerships of the couples and stuff like that, but Brandon and Nat is a thing. And you guys had a lot of chemistry. I mean, you guys worked a lot together. How are you doing?
We did. We worked a lot together. We also spent a lot of time together outside of work. Joey and I were great friends outside of work, which makes losing him very difficult for me. Joey was a very influential guy in my life, in my young life in Hollywood. He sort of took me under his wing and introduced me to a lot of people, and showed me around town in a way that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. He was a very like Jennie was saying, he was very old Hollywood, and he knew a lot of those old Hollywood guys, and he was a great sharer of his knowledge and his experiences, and I will be eternally grateful to him for that.
Matthew, we have Matthew Laurance too here. Matthew, do you have any good Joey stories for us?
Well, first of all, I've been lucky enough to see Tori and Peter. Lindsay, you look beautiful. Jason, it's long since I've seen you. I'll tell you that. But my Joey, what happened to me when I heard this news, we were the old people on the set. We weren't that old, but we were the old people. And all of you youngsters who were going through what you were going through, I think all of us that were older and more veteran felt like a responsibility to all of you. That's the family part that we're talking about. Here's the thing, Joey was one of the warmest, most wonderful people in the world. And we all know that with everybody. There wasn't a time, I was on 9 years, there wasn't a time on that set where Joey was not hugging me or you, or laughing, or introducing somebody to somebody. Not one time in the 9 years I was there. Here's the thing that destroys me, and it's why people listening make donations to the Alzheimer's Foundation. Knowing this disease, it's not just Joey, it's anybody that has this disease. The thought that he left us not having memory, not being able to remember how much we all loved him, is the thing that breaks my heart the most. And I can't stop thinking about that. And I hope at the end, he had some clarity about how much everyone absolutely adored him. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's part of me that wants to believe that, yeah, it does take the memories away and it affects different people differently. But there's
Right.
part of me that wants to believe that in his soul, he absolutely remembers hugging each one of us and he felt
Yes.
our love. Yeah. Because I think that's the case for all of us. It doesn't matter where any of us are or what any of us are going through. We're all connected on a soul level because we spent so much so much formative time together that I'll always know, and and I feel like he did too at the end.
I mean, we were so blessed to have that Zoom that you put together, Pete, for all of us to be able to see him and talk to him. Was that about a year ago?
About a year ago.
Yeah.
And he was still like, I didn't know Joey at all, just to be clear. You guys are the cast, and I'm, again, grateful to be here. But he seemed like, even in that Zoom, he was still really hilarious and cracking jokes with all of you and talking about things that you all knew and whatnot. He was still with it and got it. You know?
And that was the thing about the disease at that time when we did it. He couldn't remember moment to moment that was happening there, but he remembered all of us and he remembered the old times.
Joey was very old Hollywood, I think. When I think of Joey, I think of his old Hollywood, almost mafia friends. Do you know what I mean? Like, he definitely knew everybody and everything. And he was a man who was filled with stories, filled with know-how and history. And he'd been a part of it all. He'd been around for a long time. He was a really good, generous spirit.
And speaking of old,
sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, in terms of him being old Hollywood, for me coming on to your show at, in the last 3 seasons, I was such a fan. And I remember, meeting him. First of all, did he not have the warmest smile in the world? Like, it just lit up an entire room. And I remember the thing about him, the old Hollywood thing about him, was that he had a class and a sort of like, there's a way that sets used to run where you were grateful to be there, and you welcomed everyone and you made sure everyone knew everyone else. And there was a warmth and just a real gratitude that comes with, knowing how fortunate you are working in Hollywood. And it wasn't just his stories, it was just this overall feeling that, you could look to him for that, like, center. He was always like the center.
Yes, and he always respected the work, and he was always totally prepared every day. He came in, he knew all his lines, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He was super prepared all the time. And that's another, like, old school Hollywood professionalism. He was just always super prepared and always really ready to work every day, which was nice for all of us youngsters to see.
Yeah, like what Matthew said, I think is true. Like, they did sort of have that responsibility of sort of showing us the ropes, if you will, because we were all young and kind of figuring it out too. And I think there was a lot to that, because they, I know, like, the other adults on the cast, like, I learned so much from just being around them and watching them and hoping that professionalism sort of, like, leaked into my world. And I think it did. I think they had a huge impact on us. And certainly Joey did.
You guys remember he would come to set every day. He was always, and this is another old Hollywood thing, he would come dressed, he would have his briefcase, like, he looked great. Like, we would all be like in sweats and our hair a mess, like, we're going to get into glam anyway, but he was always like dressed nicely, had his briefcase, walked in, like, and that's another thing, like, it's like when they say people used to dress up to take, flights, it used to be a thing, like, that was on old Hollywood sets. They would always come dressed in their own, like, best foot forward presentation.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm curious for you guys, as you guys were rising in this show, it became a super juggernaut and you guys became super famous. Is Joey somebody that helped ground you guys with advice or talk you through when the world seemed like it was, getting carried away in your lives? Was he someone that could laugh it out with you or talk to you or say, hey man, don't worry about that, or Tori, don't stress that? Or how did he handle some of that?
He did for me 100%. He gave me tons of advice about how to handle stuff all the time. He was very helpful for me personally. I don't know what he did for you guys. Tori, Jennie?
Jay, I agree with you. Yes, he was always, and I feel like because we were young, we didn't know, like, later on got to know what was happening in Joey's personal life and his struggles, but he never brought that to set. He was always more concerned about us and wanted to know what's going on, talk to me about it. And, he would always place his hands on my shoulders. He would bring me in. He would look me right in the eye, big smile. He said, talk to me. And he did. He would always, talk about the work, talk about the personal aspect of it and what would happen and what was happening. And for like relationships, I always had like bad relationships with guys. He would always know. And he would always be like,
We always had something going on. Yep.
I need to have someone come in because I got connections. Like, I'll do it myself.
He was offering his services.
Yes, always.
His services.
Yes.
Yeah, he always just made you feel better. Like you could just de-escalate any situation. It felt like just by looking at you and smiling, and it was just you just got wrapped up in that warmth that was like, Uncle Joey. I don't know, something about it.
Hey, Lindsay,
Yeah,
I'm
he's a
curious for you. Like you came in later on in the show, and that could be intimidating in its own self. But was Joe someone like that would talk to you and make you feel like you've been there since day one?
I think because, I grew up in this business, so
Sure.
I had been on a bunch of sets, but this was the most intimidating one by far.
Sorry.
By far. And there was something about his presence that, like Jay said, like there was a professionalism. There was this thing where he just like oozed being an actor that made me feel like, aha, I know what I'm doing because he's going to do what I'm here to do. And I'm not going to be totally freaked out that everyone here I've watched since I was a freshman in high school. And he made me feel extremely welcome. I think he called me kid. And I think he called me like nicknames that made me feel like I was a part of the group, He was very aware of, I'm sure, having watched all the comings and goings, how a person like me might have felt. So I remember thinking he went out of his way to make me feel extremely welcome and, valued.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, definitely. He also just like, I was thinking while you were talking, Lindsay, that you could tell he loved what he did.
Yeah.
Like he loved acting.
He said, how lucky are we to be doing this? That was his thing. How lucky are we? I know that we're here to talk about, and I'm glad, but I feel remiss not to be able to mention Denise and Jessica, because this is, I have to say, part of all of this is, and I had said this in a post, it's our family, and it's a lot of, they're three really important people in different ways. So
What about Jessica?
A lot of family lately.
Jessica Klein wrote so much of the beautiful stuff that you all said. Why don't we talk about her real briefly? Jennie, I know you were very touched by all of the stuff that she wrote. She wrote, I Choose Me. You know what I mean? She wrote some of the most important things that came through the series.
Yeah, she just had that feminine sensibility that the female characters on the show really needed. And she just knew what she was doing and she knew how to do it. And there was no discussion around it. Like she just took care of it, and I just felt very taken care of by her and protected by her love for the characters that had been created and her desire to keep everybody going in the right direction.
Jay, how about you?
I felt a great loss when we lost Jessica. She was an incredibly talented writer. I was incredibly lucky to work with her as a showrunner for the years that she worked with us as our showrunner. Her and her unfortunately deceased ex-husband Steve. They were very good for us as showrunners, and she's also a lovely woman as well. uh, my heart goes out to her surviving daughter, and her family. I know that they're suffering these days. Her loss is felt by a lot of people.
Beautiful. Being at the funeral, to be able to hear all these people, and she touched so many lives. I think that if there is a lesson to be said, that our place in this world is to make a difference. She made a difference in so many people's lives, and to hear them speak, it wasn't like she was a teenager. She was somebody who was older, who passed away, not old but older, and yet there was the things that people said about her were so. I was really moved, and I didn't even know, like, stuff outside of her writing. Love doing this. She was a giver. She really believed in the idea of service to humanity. She lived that life, walked that walk. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
Really
that was interesting to learn about all the things that she had done since the show and the impact that she had had in her faith, that her, how she, I don't know who told me the story about when she came into town. I don't know, I think it was for Luke's funeral and for his service anyway, and how it was on us. I don't know, what is the right word, Gab? Sabbath. Shabbat.
It's
So
the
she couldn't.
Shabbat.
Right. She didn't drive. So she stayed at a hotel close by enough that she could walk the walk through, nature and take that time to like really let it sink in. I don't know. There was just so many cool things that I too learned about her after her passing that were inspirational.
It was definitely a fire. Like, she was a spitfire. And I love that about her. Like, we talk about nowadays, like, female bosses, like, oh, you're a boss babe. People throw that term loosely around. Like, back in the day, she was that. Like, she was so kind and so funny, but filled with so much fire and just led the force. And her daughter and I were talking after she passed, and she was like, my mom always loved, she said about me, that you were willing to do whatever. And she loved writing for that. And so I am so grateful to Jessica, because she wrote a lot of the comedy that I got the chance to do. And that was really important to me. So it meant a lot. She was amazing.
It was like a voice of a generation in a way. You know what I mean? For fans, like her words came through through all of you in such a beautiful way. What about Denise Daus, Mrs. Teasley, another.
Someone just reminded me the other day that Mrs. Teasley was at Donna Martin's bachelorette party.
That's true. Yes.
And I can't wait to rewatch that episode, because I did not remember that.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember that.
I literally can't wait for you to watch that.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That must be in the 10th season.
That's fantastic.
I remember.
And I think someone said, wow, Donna Martin must have been really hard up for friends if you have to invite your vice principal from high school to your bachelorette party.
Vice
I'm
principal.
like, no, that's just a testament to how cool she was.
Your mom,
that character.
Felice was there. This was the bachelorette party. Yes, and Mrs. Teasley.
Woohoo! Can't wait.
Party time.
I'd seen Denise through the years. She loved, remember, great. She was a teacher also. She loved working with her, and she was really making Mark her own way outside of the show through these last couple of years. They're really surprised when she was away.
It's crazy though, when you think about like the loss, and we all started with, when Luke passed away so suddenly, and that was so jarring and weird and just destructive. and then to see now, as other people from that experience and that world that we had pass away and move on, like, I don't know, there's just like, I get goosebumps talking about it, and it makes me a little emotional, because sorry guys.
I love you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said before, I fucking hate death and I hate loss. But I do have to believe that we'll all be together again. And I'm really glad that I'll be with you guys. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Inevitable. It's a part of life, and we have such a history. And we always say this to each other, while the fans can watch and be a part of our family, and that was, we were in everyone's home, so you are our family when you've watched us and now listen to us. But that experience over that 10 years was something that we can't ever put in words to anybody else outside of our group, because it was an experience that we all shared, so like a bond. And Jen and I talk about it, that I don't think it was a coincidence that we were all together and we all shared that experience and that journey, and that will always hold a special place for all of us involved that were shared that, somewhere in that 10-year experience.
Mm-hmm. And if you believe in like heaven and everything, I don't know what anybody believes in. I don't care. I don't even know what I believe in half the time, but I know how if it is the way they say it is, that Luke was so beyond elated to have Joey join him at that party that they're having, like it made me feel like he wasn't alone,
Mm.
Yeah. Well, we hope not.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah, as fans look at this and watch this, I mean, we all grew up together, right, Jennie? We've said that, like, people feel like the fans feel like they grew up and we all grew up together. Like, they're all going through their own personal sort of losing their own Nats and their own people. And it's a really challenging time, relationships, whatever they're going through. We're all at that age. We can't even believe we're at that age, that it's us that we're talking about this. It sounds like other people would be having these issues, but we're all having them. I mean, for Jennie, do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, how are you getting through some of these losses and whatnot to help fans maybe in their own struggles with what they're
I don't know
dealing
if I'm
with?
the right person to ask. Like I fall apart. I'm a very emotional person. Some people call me emotional. I call myself emotionful
There you
because
go. I like
it
that.
sounds more positive. But yeah, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask, because you're right. Like everybody's going through stuff, and you gotta just kind of learn to deal with it as it goes, or I don't know.
I mean, we'll always have memories, like that's what you take with you. Like you have visual memories of, almost like you can visualize them in your life, and you remember hugging someone or being with someone. And then when they pass away, that remains. But we're so lucky that through 90210, we literally have, 10 seasons of a show that is like a beautiful love letter to our entire family, that the ones we are losing, we're able to see them. And remember it that way, and the fans get to do that as well, so they're never completely gone.
I hate the endings of things. I
Yeah.
don't like when good things end. I remember when the show ended, I hated that day. I hate the ending of anything. I've recently experienced loss in my life. I lost my dad, and I feel like a lot of people of our age are losing their parents, and like it rocks you. But the thing that I just refuse to believe is that when like you have an energy as big as a life force, that ends. So the thing that I think keeps me like going and keeps me thinking, especially whether it's that our show, that your show was on for so long and ended, or that, unfortunately we lose the people we love, that energy continues. And I think if you don't think of it as being over, it's just transitioned or changed into a different energy, a different, who knows what it is. That sort of helps a bit. It's not, there's no easy way through it, but I think thinking about that energy carrying on is probably helpful.
The energy joining the energy, right? It's just all coming together.
And
And
you
when you
feel like we
love
have
someone
the
so much, the grief is so much greater, right? So it's like you feel grief and you feel the loss. It just means that you were lucky enough to have that, love
Mhm.
and experience.
And we're so lucky because we get to watch the show back and be with the person as if we're all still together, and that those moments in time are frozen forever. And we're so lucky to have that. And I don't know. I think we might have Chuck Rosan joining us. Is that happening?
Just to jump on your point though, Jennie, like the fans also always have the show to go back to. They always have that thing. The work that you guys did is now speaking on such a deeper level because there is that place that they can go back and watch that episode where, Nat paid off Brandon's bookie or whatever it is, and live in those kinds of spaces of like, hey, this is this place. This is where I'm good. I can come here and I can watch this and be okay. It's like the work that you guys did and the dedication that you guys put into for all the seasons that you were there. It's just so appreciative from fans. And I try to tell you guys that as much as I can, because the work still holds up and it still means a lot to this generation. And the more the generations see it, the Beverly Hills 90210 made a significant difference in people's lives. And you should all be really proud of the thing that you did because it's still here. I'm sure then in season 1, Jay, you were like, I don't think we're going to get past episode 7.
I didn't think we were going to get a back 9 pickup, Pete, to tell you the truth. I don't think any of us did. We were all surprised that we got through that first season. But
was it a back 9 then? How does it even work? We did so many episodes every season. 9 plus 9 is only 18.
No, we did the pilot, and then we got that initial 12 order.
12, okay.
And then we had to get that back 9.
Back 9. I remember that.
Right?
That
so
expression.
archaic, right? Get the back 9. Ooh.
I've forgotten about that completely.
Do you remember
but
the
that math doesn't add up because we did like 23 episodes, but we also did double up. So does that mean there was like 46 episodes?
There's like 32, 34, right?
We're all over now.
No, we were doing 32 episodes a year in those double up episodes years. We were doing 32. It was crazy.
Yeah, and Joey was on for all 10 years. He's one of the few of us that was on for all 10 years. And he was in like 200 and I don't even know how many episodes that was, 200 and something.
Yeah, he was in a lot.
Jay, do you remember that episode where he paid off your bookie? Do you remember
when he paid off Billy Vera?
Yes. We just watched that on 90210G.
The least intimidating bookie ever. My bookie with the softest hands I've ever touched in my life.
And that voice he had.
I love it.
Remember, I don't know which season it was, but finally Joey was added as a series regular, even though he was always a series regular to us. He wasn't contractually a series regular. And then he got to be in the opening credits. He had his own spin-in. I remember that day filming that. He was so excited to be included in that.
Of course he was.
As he should be, yes.
That I do everything.
I mean, in it.
Yeah.
What season was that? Was that season 8?
Oh, did he got his spin?
He don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's sooner than that. I think he became a regular sooner than that.
Like season 7, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that.
He was spinning by the time I got there.
There you go.
Okay.
I feel like it was like season 7, maybe. Gabrielle, I just watched an episode where you had to go do a review of the Peach Pit, and you're like a Yelper, and you're giving, because it's a college thing, so you're like giving a really harsh review. But you and Joey do some really great comedy. Was he fun to do comedy with, Gabrielle?
He was fun to work with. He was really. I don't know. Can you hear me at all, you guys? I'm so sorry about my.
It's great now.
All good.
Was what everybody has said, to be with Joey was to be with joy. That's what it was. That was really, he loved what he did. He made it fun and easy and have to think about it. Sometimes you work with somebody and you just flow. He was that kind of guy. Just everything about, and it's because he was so professional. You didn't have to there was no baggage with him. Really fun. And really,
I know we're being joined by Chuck now. I thought it was earlier, but now I know he's here. Chuck,
I
can you
see
hear
both.
us?
I see
We
Larry
had
too.
great comedic
And
timing.
Larry. We have Chuck Rosen and Larry Mullin. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Look at you.
Look at you guys. I know all of you. Lindsay, I don't know you, but hello. Nice to meet you. Hi. I can answer that because he started being a serial about Joey. It was season 5, my last year. And and Tori, he was onto it after about season 3. He wanted to know, why aren't I in the credits? While we get there, but eventually he convinced his friends down the hall to be in the series regular, and like all you guys, he was great that he made it, and that's where he belonged. And really hard, right? I mean, you the actors, maybe Larry too, he was a character actor, and for a character actor to get on, and I was looking at his resume, and he did every show in the early 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, just a lot of shows. But to have 10 years of one character to grow and be with, this was his part of his lifetime, and that was the beauty of it, is that he knew it. He was happy, as you're all saying.
Chuck, do you remember meeting him in the audition? Do you remember seeing him for the first time?
The audition, I've been thinking about the audition because it was the first audition that we had. It was in episode 2. Every Dream Has Its Price Tag, the one about shoplifting. And we did it on Wilshire Boulevard, and Tony Shepard, it was me and Tony Shepard, because Tony was representing your dad, Tori, and it was because it had the chance to be a recurring role. We didn't know if it would, because, but it had the chance to come back for more. And there were 2 actors. So it was Tony Shepard, me, and Diane Young. There was a woman director who I actually went after Melanie Mayron to do episode 2, and she had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend was the director. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment here, but she's the one. My favorite thing that she did is she's the one that got you to do the aerial shot with you on the bed, Jennie. So when you spun over, and that was always in the credits and things. I always liked that one directing move she made. But the 2 actors, it was Joey, but the other actor is Frank Gorshin. Do any of you guys know Frank?
The Joker, the original Joker.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Frank Gorshin, and Frank Gorshin was a more, guest star worthy. He was a big name coming in. And the other woman, the woman director, was just deferring to him and I just looked at it this way. Who would I rather spend an afternoon with? This friend of Duke Vincent's or the star? And, it was no contest. Joey, it wasn't very many lines, but that personality is that's what we needed. That's what you wanted. You wanted a place. If I was going to try to create a place where all you guys would hang out, then it would have to be a welcoming one. You didn't want somebody who had sardonic insight, which is
Right.
Frank really brought to the table, I think.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yes.
That's that story. All right.
Larry, bye, Chuck. Thank you. No. Larry, you got to work with them in the later seasons. You came in season 4. What are some of your thoughts about working with Joe?
I was thinking of it. I have 2 major thoughts. One was the fact that writers loved Joey, and we loved writing for the character of Nat. And by the 5th season, when Cindy and Jim left, there was a space to kind of develop it more. And in season 6, we went for it. We sat there in the room and said, we're going to give Joey a romantic storyline. And it's going to be the one that got away. And we mined deep into the real Joey's life, like Chuck was saying, into his credits. And we found a movie he was in called Unholy Rollers. It was a Roger Corman film, a B film, and we built this whole storyline that this was going to track the one girl that he really loved who got away. And Roger Corman, they screened the movie at the Peach Pit After Dark. It's a special night to kind of honor Joey, because the gang did not know he was an actor. And his whole story was, of course, he had that repressive father, which we see in the 60s episode, who basically made him give up his acting dream. but we had this movie. We're going to show it, and Joe and his girlfriend from back when is going to show up, and we did. And Joey has kissing like everybody else, and everybody else gets involved in this relationship, and they wind up getting married and having a baby, and it goes to the end of the season. And the woman he marries, who plays Joni, was a friend of mine, Julie Parrish. She was a wonderful gal. I don't know if you guys got to meet her. She was in Elvis movies. She was an Elvis girl, and she was a friend of mine, just from a friend of a friend, because she had done Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, also no long credit. But Joey could not have been happier. He met the challenge of having his own romantic storyline, and it was we felt so good about it. The other thing I wanted to say was, we exploited Joey's character in a sense in season 4, and Chuck knows this, because we had this great storyline for Dylan where he's going to get scammed out of his money. And in the Christmas episode where it's all starting to go down, and Kelly Taylor, played by Jennie, does not trust these people at all, it's Nat who says to Dylan, "Come on, Dylan, it's Christmas. You have to trust people." And Dylan does, and he gets scammed out of all his money. And he gives the worst advice. And I remember telling the last time I saw Joey was that Zoom we had, and I told him the story, and he had a big laugh out of it. He had the worst advice.
The cool thing is for Jennie and Tori, you're doing season 4. You're coming to it pretty soon, and you'll be able to explore.
We're gonna get to see all of
see all that play out. Yeah, it's good stuff. You're gonna love it. Yeah.
Wait,
Charles, go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Larry, did we screen that Roger Corman movie? Was that the episode where we did the Roger Corman Film Festival?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right, that's right.
It was fade in, fade out as the episode. Maybe you've been directed it. But yeah,
I did. I directed that one. That's right. I remember that. And Roger came to do a cameo.
It was great.
That's right.
You got Roger Corman to do a cameo? Very cool.
It was fantastic.
We did. Because I did a Roger Corman movie, and I sent him an email, and I was like, "Hey, Roger, I don't know if you remember me, but I made a movie for you back in the 80s, and I'm directing an episode of 90210." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come and do it for you."
He's still around.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's awesome. It was really cool.
Okay. Do you guys remember when we saw him at the, wasn't really the Peach Pit, but it was just a few years ago when they did that event for BH 90210.
The pop-up.
And he came to the pop-up, and I'll never forget, because
Joey, not Roger Corman.
Correct. Thank you, Tori.
But Roger Corman liked the good burger.
But he was already starting to suffer from Alzheimer's at that point, and we weren't sure what we were going to get and how it was going to affect him and how it was going to go. But I just remember he was exactly the same as he always was, getting a little booty pat in there, get a little extra squeeze, and just feeling that love from Joey, like it had never changed. Wait, what did Karen say?
Karen used to always say he was handsy.
Handsy.
Yeah, that was
Handsy, yes.
That's part of the old Hollywood thing.
But in the best possible way.
A good way. Handsy in a good way.
But it never crossed the line. It never got
No. Brian referred to it as very, very feeling. It was very like a touch and feel kind of thing, right?
He was feely.
Yeah, men and women. It was it was squeezy. It was great. I mean, and Jen and I had the opportunity to work with him again when we did Mystery Girls in 2014, and that was such an honor. And that was the first time that he really divulged to us, his personal struggles and what was going on. And he said, "I'm so nervous that I'm not going to be able to do it." He was Joey. He showed up like he was awesome on tape day in front of a live audience.
Mm-hmm. And he just flashed that smile, and everybody was like, "Oh my God,
crazy!"
Yeah.
Tori, I mean, there's an episode in the last episode. There's a great scene where you ask him to walk you down the aisle. The Donna does. Sorry, I connect you two all the time.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But I think what's really interesting is the way you asked him. And I feel like fans, or when I watch back that moment, it's such a powerful moment because we want that. We want to see Nat incorporated into the end of the series in a way. And it's a really touching moment. Do you remember doing that? And what was that like to shoot and do, especially at that time when the show was coming to an end, right?
So the writers had talked to me about it. And, since my dad on the show had passed away, they said, who would walk Donna down the aisle? There was an idea of Felice walking her, my mom down the aisle.
No.
And I immediately said, are you open to Joey walking me down the aisle? I feel like that's the heartbreaking moment. Like, she lost her dad, but this is her second dad, really, because throughout the years, that's what he was like to everyone. That's what he became. And, you know, personally, Joey and I were so close. I was like, this is a real relationship on and off camera. Like, this would be an honor for him to actually walk me down the aisle. And they were excited about the idea and wrote that in. So, and I think we were actually, because I think a lot of people are like, it's kind of weird that it was filmed at the Peach Pit after dark. I think for some reason we ran out of time. It was supposed to take place in the Peach Pit, but they were on the set for Peach Pit after dark. We had to shuffle things around. So that's where Donna asked him. He came over and Donna asked him.
I know why you weren't at the Peach Pit, because they had struck the set.
Oh no, it was already
And
gone.
you know how I know this?
Was?
And I'll tell you how I know this. Because Larry, this is when I was doing, and Jay, I was doing a pilot for Fox at the time, a kind of a low budget, really low budget, even lower budget than the first season of 90210. It was low budget, and so I needed a set, and I needed a stage, and Paul gave it to me because you had already struck it, and we were filming when I don't know if you guys remember this. Rosan World crashed the wedding.
Nice.
Karen and I and all three of my kids who really wanted to be there were there. We've got the pictures to prove it. And when I left the Hilton, I think it was at the Hilton, right? The Beverly Hilton.
Yes.
I drove back to our Calvert Street and ready for the night shoot that we were doing on the stage. That's how I know. But it was the Peach Pit after dark where we filmed, not the original Peach Pit set.
Right.
You just blew my mind. I did not know the Peach Pit set had been struck already, because that was what, we had 2 more episodes to go, or was the episode before the finale?
As I did 143 episodes with the spelling company, I know they don't fuck around. They just get going. They're just gonna get it done, you know. And, okay, wipe that off the books now. Come on, off the book.
I think it's cool that it's at the After Dark and it's not at the Peach Pit. I know maybe it makes more sense, but I like the intimates, and Nat's not wearing his outfit. He's in street clothes and he's just having a conversation. You know, it's not you're not going to the diner to ask him, you know. Lindsay, do you have any kind of memories of, you know, any scene work that you did with him or anything like that?
I think, you know, Ian and I did a lot of scenes in the Peach Pit when we were like coming up with our schemes and plans for the tabloid that we wrote for.
The Beat.
The Beverly Beat.
Love the Beat.
Me too. I don't really remember the specifics of the scenes, but I remember loving, you know, the moments for me as an actor sometimes that I remember the most are the in between the scenes. And you get to go and sit in your chair with your name on it, and you get to chat with the other actors. And I have vivid memories of sitting with him on the stage waiting for a lighting change or, you know, to hit our marks. And, you know, like I said before, I really liked being in his presence because he was a pro and he was funny and he always had stories. And I felt, you know, happy to waste some time with him on those stages and dark sets, you know.
We're also joined by Michael Lange, director.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael. So excited to see you.
How many episodes of the show did you direct, Michael?
26. No, I think 12.
I was believing 26.
I was all in. Yeah.
Obviously one of our favorites because we loved you so much. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I always tell Michael, whenever there's something that's very complicated, it seems like they're just like, or there's multiple days, there's going to be a lot of action. Let's just call Michael Lange. He'll figure it out.
Yeah. Now, you guys were my favorites too. Whenever I do panels or whatever, and they say, "What was your favorite show to work on?" and I always say 90210 was the greatest show because it knew what it was, and it knew what it was supposed to do, and it knew that's it. It knew what it was. It knew what it was supposed to do, and it was about things that were important to human beings. So. And you guys were also great. I mean, people would say, "Oh, were there any stories?" I would say the only good ones. I mean, you guys were professional and always prepared and fantastic. And it was a great show to work on. Loved it.
Do you remember like what episode that stand out to you that you directed with Joey?
I don't know. I mean, not really, because his parts were always relatively small. I mean, the one I remember the most was the one with the which we did, which had the fair or whatever, with all the rides and whatever.
Yes.
Be amazing.
Mr. Walsh Goes to Washington.
Yes.
But I actually was sort of thinking about today, I thought of a story about Joey that completely, captures him in my mind. And here it is. First of all, he was one of the very few people that called me Mike, and it was fine with me. So I had just gotten a new car, which I was very excited about. And it had gotten a little bit dirty, and I was, riding to the set. It was whatever, I think it was a slightly later call. And I decided to get the car washed. So I left a little earlier. As a director, I would always get to the set a half hour before crew call, always. So I figured, okay, I have enough time. The car wash was interminably slow. I mean, ridiculous. And I'm pouring sweat. I mean, I'm just so exasperated. Come on, guys. So finally, they get the car done, and I had like 10 minutes to get there before crew call, and it was probably a 9-minute drive. So I'm probably driving like 80 miles an hour down Ventura Boulevard. Not very good. So I screech up, and I just park right. The first scene we were shooting was in the Peach Pit. So I screech up and park right in front of this, basically in the set, because I'm the director. Who cares? I park at the set, and Joey is out there, right? And he we've talked, this, it was probably the 5th or 6th episode. So we had talked, and I'm always sort of proud that I always get there early. And so I'm sure I mentioned that. So he's out there, and he's going like this.
You're pointing to your watch. He's pointing to his watch, yeah.
Right. So,
He wanted you to know.
Not only did it not bother me that he did it, which normally, like if an AD ever did that to me, I would throw them off the set. But like, it's Joey, so how can you get mad at this guy? And he's right, I am late. So I jumped out of the car. He had already gotten all the actors assembled, right? And made sure everyone, I think I might have called the AD to say, it's going to be pretty close. Anyway, and he was just so sweet about it. And just, he did that sort of fake thing that it was just such a memorable moment of him, and how he could just he was such a, like an authentic person. He was a great guy, really great guy. And I hadn't had that memory until, this. So it was pretty cool.
We've talked a lot of business and on set about Joey. We haven't talked offset with Joey. But I was lucky enough to be able to go to quite a few Playboy Mansion parties with Joey Tata. Yes. And he was like the life of the party. Like, he was the king there. Like, he was friends with he was old Hollywood, right? So, he was there, and he was always so respected there. So I just have those memories of being able to go and be like, oh my gosh, like Donna drunk at prom, Donna drunk at the Playboy Mansion with Nat, OMG, we just always had the best times. And yeah, that was always a standout. And I know Jen and I have mentioned on the show, like, we always looked forward to like late nights. We'd be filming with the group Friday night. And, sometimes we put in plastic cups and like, sorry, Chuck, Larry, and Michael, you shouldn't be listening to this, but we'd have some alcoholic beverage.
Wow.
It was like nighttime. We'd have one big group scene. We each had like one line, and then we're okay. But Joey, in that infamous briefcase that he had with pop it open, always had like little mini bottles. He'd have like a makeshift bar in there. This is after we were all legal. But like, yeah, we could go and be like, oh great, yeah, we'll have some. So like, Joey's room was like the fun room to go into. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, that's
You just did.
Oh my God, I just felt like I was back in school with like all of my like teachers. And I'm like, oh my God, am I allowed to say that?
They can't do anything about it now. Chuck, we can't hear you. Chuck, we can't hear you.
me now?
That's a microphone right
Yeah.
there.
That's a microphone. Got it. Better do it that way. Jenny, you and I have these things in common, you know.
The tech issues.
You just should have come in. You guys were on the set doing that. You could have come into Paul's office about that. It would be Betty, me.
Chuck's saying back in the writers' room, we were smoking joints.
I thought I
Joey
smelled
always
something.
had that too available, but I didn't want to call everyone out. Okay, wait. So you're saying we could have merged parties?
Yeah.
God, that would have been so
Oh,
weird.
Darn
We
it.
only had a hill between us.
Aw.
Jenny,
So
did you get to
good.
go to any of those kind of cool parties with Joe?
No, I didn't. I think I was having a baby or something. You don't really want to hang out at the Playboy Mansion when you're like 8 months pregnant.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You did get to have a couple experiences though at some rap parties with him. Like we definitely like had fun with him at rap parties.
Oh yeah, he's the guy. We wanted to hang out with him. Like
Yeah.
It wasn't weird at all that he was a lot older than us.
No, not at all. He was so fun. That's why I felt it was important to bring up that part of it too. While he was like someone we definitely looked up to on set. He was so professional and so kind and helped us with our personal problems. Like he also was like that fun guy to go out with.
Yeah,
And
he
it was, like,
loved to
no
have a
age
good
difference.
time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wait, Linz, did we ever go out with Joey?
I was just trying to think. I was like, was he with us that night at the sushi restaurant when I fell off the table and pulled the potted plant out of the thing?
That sounds like such a great story.
I don't believe
Was
he
he
was
with us?
I want to hear that story.
I know. I don't care if he was there or not.
And also, by the way, I didn't know you guys had briefcases of bottles of things on the set. You didn't let me in on that until I think you're back. Well, maybe around the time of Donna's bachelorette party, and Mrs. Teasley was there, and just to come like full circle, and we had real like live Jello shots, and I remember being
Wow.
I know it
How
was
do
just
I
a
not
little bit of
remember this?
I know.
Yeah, and
I'm sure I was there, but I don't have no
You were
idea.
at the bachelor.
I was being honored and I don't remember it.
Okay, good.
And I remember
Jello
everything.
shots, and I remember
No.
being like
Maybe
trying
it was-
to like say my line like
Yeah, it was probably the Jello
Wait,
shots.
who made Jello shots?
you did.
I did. I made him and brought
She has no memory. I love this so much.
Oh well, someone made Jello shots, but it wasn't me.
Probably me.
It sounds like something you would do
Yeah,
and bring
of
to set.
course.
Mhm.
I just want to give Larry and Chuck a chance to talk about Denise and Jessica too, because we had talked about them earlier. And of course, you both worked, obviously with Jessica, you worked side by side with her through the years. Chuck, is your audio good? Do you want to talk about Jessica Klein, or should we go to Larry?
Go to Larry.
Now we heard you fine.
Oh, there I am. I'm back. Okay. Am I back?
my God.
Am I back or not?
You're back.
The trauma.
Okay.
We got you.
Yeah.
This microphone that you're
Gosh.
using is working really well.
This one's not so well, but and
With Jessica. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there were. I mean, and we've talked about this on our podcast. You know, I don't know if you guys felt this, if you've talked about it ever. You know, Darren announces he's doing another series, and why don't you just yank out my heart? You know, I mean, he was a huge part of the production, and what are we going to do? And Steve and Jessica and I and Karen really resolved to make season 3 the best one we could possibly do without him. And so, you know, that was Jessica. That was a full major year. You guys know it from going to Paris to the Triangle,
What a big
the car
season.
blowing up to graduation. What a thing. And, you know, so that Jessica and Steve were there every minute of that. And miss her a lot, and was really comforted to see you there that day, Jenny.
Yes, me too. There, we're joined by Karen, your lovely wife now. Hi, Karen.
Yeah.
Say though, real quick, sorry, that to date, we hear this all the time. Season 3 is by far the fan fave season.
I hear that
I'm
too.
loving it.
Pete, am I wrong? Are we wrong?
No, everybody does say
We're
that.
loving
Yes.
it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's our favorite
I
so
actually
far.
like season 4 more, but that's just me. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put my thoughts in, but season 3
Season
is really
3 and 4. That's what
are
everyone
really
says are
amazing.
like
Yes.
the favorite.
Oh yeah, season 4 had Mullin. You know, it's pretty hard to top that. You know?
Larry Mullin, right? Yes. Larry, do you want to weigh in on Jessica?
I came in season 4, so Jessica and Steve was at the height of their powers, and Jessica was really, really bright, and she understood how to frame a story, and she was basically, we've talked about this before, but she was the go-to person to pitch the story to Mr. Spelling, because that's a terrifying aspect. We've done all this work, we got to now present the stories to Mr. Spelling. Of course, he wants to know what Donna's doing first, but she knew that. She knew to do that. But now it's all our goodies are in her, in her bag basically, and she would always do it. She would be brilliant at it, and that was her strong thing. The other thing, with Steve and her were there,
Larry,
she was the typist. But yeah,
and also the network too.
And the
one
network,
thing,
yeah,
Aaron, at
absolutely,
least it was
more
a friendly
important,
house.
Yeah,
you go into
luckily,
Fox, they were ready to. Oh, that one's not going to work. So we had to, and she was great at that.
Yeah, she had a great grasp, but it's tragic because she was young. I mean, it's kind of upsetting. But we loved her. We got a chance to, we had the chance to kind of reunite with her and all the other people with her too over the last couple of years. So there's that. What do we got?
Oh, Chuck, we have a question for you about Denise, because we were trying to figure this out. So how did the role of Mrs. Teasley, because originally we saw she was in it as she was with the twins, the twin testing.
Right.
She was like a
episode.
teacher or something, right?
As someone else. And then she came back as Mrs. Teasley. How did that work? And did you plan on her being recurring? I mean, that part grew and grew and grew. Was that because of her personality, or how did that come about?
Yes, it actually was, Tori. She, and I had to be reminded of that. But it was, every once in a while, Diane Young would come in and say, remember, this actress did only this part and you really liked her and she did well and she would like to come back. And I think that's what it was. She wanted to do it. And we knew, and with Denise's quality, particularly then she being, and very much like Karen and my friend Janice, who was the real life Mrs. Teasley. That was her last name was Teasley. And but anyway, and we know well, but also had a really lovely speaking voice. And with the principals in a lot of the different schools, there's assemblies, and it's the person we knew she'd have great command. And we were, and I'm not ashamed to say this at this point, we want, just like we had Henry at the Beach Club and Denise, we knew, here on our main cast, hello, Karen, in our main cast, we didn't have people of color. So we also really looked to bolster that. And they became such good friends of the show.
Yes.
And of all of you, clearly.
Let's talk about Joey. We're here for,
Yes. God, he was always very nice to me. I think the ladies will remember this. And I think I speak for Jessica, Alav Shalom, that he was kind of flirty. He was like, and especially
so diplomatic
if it was
of
like
you.
a rap party or, something where there was alcohol available, then I would be sure to have a long conversation with Joey, very close quarters, a long conversation. And, he never acted disappointed in the outcome, but, I think he was very friendly. Let me just say that, but we loved him. He was great. He was a pro, a veteran actor, great to have with the young folks, and it was fun to write for him. It was fun to write for him.
I was thinking relative to Karen with our writing for Joey is, and it was one that was so important. And when we did Brenda go to the Peach Pit and be Laverne, which was a crazy notion to have her dress up and be that character. And one of the reasons it worked is because Joey was, as the owner of it, wasn't RuPaul. He just went with it. Oh, here's this crazy kid doing it. Anyway, that light quality, that air, that he could bring that. He made it a place you wanted to be in the Peach Pit. You wanted, it was our version of Cheers, everyone knows your name, kind of thing.
That's true.
It was also a spot where they would that was one of the places we could sometimes have a whole cast scene. in the Peach Pit, or multiples, lots of people in there. And those were, I was just saying this to somebody else this morning, that when the whole gang got together, everyone's individual, I'm just going to say star quality, their charisma was magnified and amplified by being all together. And it was like more than the sum of its parts. And it was fun, really fun to watch, you know, in person on the set. I just felt very privileged when I was able to do that. And then Peach Pit was one of those locations where it was. But that episode with Laverne, that's an example of one that the network didn't care about so much, but the fans really loved. And Joey would always tell me that that was their favorite episode. They would come up to him, people would tell him, that was my favorite. Blah, blah, blah. So he would always give me that compliment. Always very sweet to me. Yeah.
Non-related, Jennie, Tori, Lindsay, did you guys ever eat a mega burger? What is that? What is that taste?
Oh my gosh, you just read my mind. I was literally just thinking about a mega burger.
Well, I mean, I would love to have one. I don't know where I would get that, but did you ever eat
I know where
a
you
mega
can
burger?
get it. You can get it from Fat Burger, because that's where we got it from.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Fat Burger and get
They would
after this.
literally pick up Fat Burger that morning and plate them.
Yeah.
That's a mega burger. A Fat Burger is a mega burger.
Drew Kenny would have done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't think of the Peach Pit without thinking of Nat. Like they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Like they go down in history together, and that the uniform, and it's just remarkable what an impact that character did have on the whole, like, you know, sphere of the show and how big it was. But it always came back to everybody knows the Peach Pit, everybody knows Nat.
Yeah.
Did I tell you guys?
Who named it the Peach Pit? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Tori.
I believe it was Charles, right? It was because it was after the apple pan.
That's how I remember it.
And
because I
why the
couldn't get
Peach
my
Pit?
apple
Was that in
pan.
honor of the apple? Oh, it
Yes,
was in honor of the
Oh,
apple
it
pan?
absolutely
Okay.
was the apple pan. I even wanted to see if we
In
could.
fact, when they told them this is what we were basing it on, the location people, they went and looked at it, and they built it on the set the same way with no tables, because the real apple pen doesn't
Just
have
that
any.
counter,
The
yeah.
first year, remember, it's just a counter,
Yeah.
and then they had to add the tables.
Yeah, because everybody was very happy when we just built the counter, because that's all we could afford to build was the counter. That was all we could do.
And why peaches? Who picked peaches?
Who likes the peaches?
Well, apple pan, Peach Pit, you know.
There you go.
It just came to them in a moment of inspiration.
A moment.
If I could get inside the mind of a writer, I would love it, because that doesn't
Yeah.
come to my mind.
Oh, well, be
Pick
careful.
apple pan.
Larry, you talked about Larry, in my mind, be careful.
I want to switch because Carol Potter has joined us here as well.
Hi, Carol.
Hello, everybody.
So
So
nice
nice
to
to
see you.
see all your faces. You too, Jennie.
We've all shared some really great stories about Joey and just our memories of him. Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, he had a lot of stories too. He was a guy that had a lot of stories. But you know, during the show, we didn't. The parents didn't hang out at the Peach Pit, surprisingly. But I ran into him at a benefit. This woman who had a terrible experience with Lyme disease, and 90210 was one of the things that helped her get through. And Joey happened to be there, and so we had a great time.
Oh,
and
I
then
know
we did
that
another.
story.
Yeah.
I
And
remember
then we
that, yes.
very interesting. And then we did we went to New Jersey for one of those celebrity conference things, and it was, you know, those things can be so wearing, but it was great to have him there, and we could just bounce stuff off of one another, and he was good company. And what a devoted father. I mean, he talked about his daughter all the time.
Right.
All the time. His
Well,
world just revolved around her.
Kelly was basically raised on the set of 90210.
Right.
His daughter. She was always there growing up.
Lindsay, you wanted to say something before. I want to let you get a chance to say it.
Oh, it wasn't that important. I was just going to tell you that speaking
So
of the
glad I
Peach
went there
Pit-
then.
I'll tell you anyway. Speaking of the Peach Pit, I had a really weird meta moment when my kids' school fundraiser this year, the theme was 90049, which was the zip code of the school. And it was a 90210 themed fundraiser. And I had to go to this fundraiser and everyone dressed as like, you know, there were just a lot of gnats. There were a lot of gnats there. I can just tell you that.
Did you dress as Janet?
I dressed. Well, my husband wanted to be Steve, and he was like, "Just go as you." And I was like, I don't know how to nail this. This is weird."
No, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and I don't even know if half the moms knew I was on the show. So, but I went as Jennie.
You went as Jennie?
I went as Brenda.
That's
I was
perfect.
Brenda, and my blonde friend was Kelly, and we wore the same prom dress.
Oh, there you go.
That's cool.
I want to see that
Classic
photo.
stuff.
Perfect.
That's great.
I think Jason had his daughter had a thing where she had to dress up from,
Dance.
dance, 90210 themed dance at her school too.
That's
She's
so
probably
cute.
really
Crazy.
popular that night.
Yeah, there are
point
pictures
to-
of like her dad
Mhm.
there. It's so
Wow.
crazy.
And a point to make up, or just to mention, is that in the various stages of 90210 that came back, they always brought Nat back, right? In the latest CW version, they brought Nat back, and he had some like coffee shop peach pit, which is just really bizarre. But he was there. I mean, so did you get to reconnect with him, Jennie, when you did that?
I wasn't on that.
You weren't on that?
I mean, in
She's
my
joking.
memory. No,
She's
I'm joking. He wasn't on it when I was on it. I was only on it for how many episodes, Tor?
22.
No, just like 3, I think. I have it in my
This is
mind.
an
I was only on
inside
that
joke
for
that we were
3.
talking about the
Yeah.
CW version.
Uh-huh.
And Jen was like, "Well, I don't remember that much. I was only on 3 episodes." I was like, "I'm telling you, you were on a lot of them." And then we Googled it together, and she was on 22 episodes.
I was gonna
Wow.
say, like, you did spend a little time on
Pivotal
this
character.
thing.
Yeah.
Pivotal character.
But she probably wasn't on the episode. Was he only in 1 episode?
I think he was on 1 episode.
All
Yeah.
right, that's so cool though that they did that, you know?
Yeah. I would have remembered seeing him there.
And we would have absolutely, of course, had him on BH 90210, but we knew, you know, he was already diagnosed with Alzheimer's and suffering. And when we saw him at the Peach Pit at the pop-up afterwards, he in fact said to us, "You know, I want to be on it." We're like, "Second season. If it goes a second season, of course you're going to be on it." And then it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should have been a second season. Sorry to just add
There
that to the
probably
mix.
should have. I had to tell you, can I just
You
pipe
enjoyed
in
it.
and say to you girls, you did such a perfect job.
Yeah.
I thought you did this wonderful.
Always.
Thank
Very
you.
I
impressive.
agree. It was so clever and so well done. And
We had fun, right, Carol?
Really fun.
yes,
Great for us. We enjoyed it.
that was my best day of filming in my entire career.
Oh my
I have
God.
to tell you, it was my
We had
favorite
so much fun
day
that
of filming.
day.
That was such a great day. It was so nice that Jason was directing, and we basically were just hanging out together all day on the set, right? Because we're all sitting there. There was barely any blocking, right?
Yeah, Carol
So
played
it
our
was-
therapist.
I remember.
And it was
Good
such
stuff.
a different experience than being like teenagers on set. And in our minds, you know, Carol was the parents. And now it was like we were all peers. And we were sitting there and we got to know Carol on a different level.
Exactly.
We're like, "Oh my God, what were we missing all these years? You're so funny. You're so cool. Like, we should have been hanging out with you."
Well, it was such a thrill to hang out with adults you guys have become. You know, that was very special. That was very special.
Thank you.
And Joey actually got to see a lot more of that, didn't he? Because he was on the whole 10 years, wasn't he?
Mhm.
So he got to be with you as you sort of grew into more of an adulthood.
Right. And all of us we were
must-
always all at the Peach Pit. So he got to be with all of us all the time, which you didn't really get to have that.
Well, we had you in the living room.
In the kitchen.
The
a lot of
Walsh
times.
living room.
Yeah, and of course, there's a last episode of season 1. You know, what going away late.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that parents were there. Carol.
Parents came to the Peach
That's right.
Pit.
That's right. So yes, occasionally we showed up at the Peach Pit.
Remember the episode where Eckhouse, where Jane went to the, became all karaoke and had the client put the karaoke machine, everybody that was early karaoke. There was, in the United States, and you guys were into doing it down in Koreatown a lot. Yes.
You were cutting edge on the karaoke scene there.
Cutting edge on everything, by the way. Really. We talk on our podcast all the time about 90210, the stories, everything connected to it. Talking about the environment even back then. Like it was all so like cutting edge of what would like end up, being huge now that everyone talks about the topical, issues we dealt with.
We also have a message that was recorded from Brian Austin Green talking about Joey. So we want to go to that now.
So, hey, Brian, man, it's good to see you and be in touch with you. I'm good, dude.
It's good to see you.
This has been a lot of things happening over the last couple of months with people from 90210 passing away. We lost Jessica Klein, Denise Daus, and of course now Joey Tata, who we're celebrating today. How are you doing with all this, man? This has not been easy times. You worked with all these people, and particularly Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely been a month of sort of reflection and a bit of a smack in the face as far as the reality that we were all so much younger when we did this show, and not to be negative about it at all, but this is just starting, unfortunately. I mean, we're just going to continue to lose people that we worked with and loved, and that's just the way it goes. I mean, there's no way around that. It's obviously really hard to lose the people that we've lost recently, because we spent so much time on set and working with them and in life with them. I mean, Joey was around the entire time. He was one of the main voices on the show. I mean, he was definitely a heart and soul in what it is we did, and fans really looked forward to seeing him and seeing the moments that he was in, and he brought so much light to what we did. Our show was a teenage drama, and the character of Nat wasn't necessarily a part of that drama. He was the joy and the escape, I think, for people watching the show, just because they had that chance to then get away and sort of laugh with him and smile with him. He had such a great energy to him, and he radiated so much love and joy that you couldn't help but smile when you saw him or you were around him personally. He was an amazing man. He really was. Denise Daus, same thing. She was fantastic. She was so professional when she got to set. She was so kind. She was so generous. And then Jessica, I mean, what a force. She was in every episode, just writing her heart out. And she was so good at listening to all the actors that were there and whatever notes they had and whatever thoughts they had, and incorporating them without letting us mess it up. Which is an easy thing to do. I mean, you get a bunch of kids in there who all of a sudden think they're awesome, and then they're like, oh, I can write a script, and it's like, no, you
it's
can't.
really not that easy.
Yeah,
Right?
it's definitely not that easy. Joey was one of those guys, though, that no matter what was going on in his life, he would share it openly, but he was very optimistic. He never ever brought things to set with a sense of woe is me. What am I going to do? I need 15 to step off set and go do, like, he would just sort of rise above everything and smile through it all. And he was really positive in the way that he dealt with life. And then for us as a young cast, I think it was just so helpful having someone as seasoned as he was, and as kind and as thoughtful as he was, that we saw every single week. I mean, we were in the Peach Pit almost every episode of
No
10
doubt.
years of the show.
Well, you were a kid actor when you
Yeah.
first came on to 90210. You were like the dorky kid. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
And so you walk onto the set, and here's Joey Tata, Nat. What were your impressions of him when you first met this guy? Because he's a larger than life kind of character on screen anyway. So what was he like when you first met him?
He so I had no idea who he was. I had no idea who Aaron Spelling was. I was like, I was young. I was really outside of the world of television at that point. I just didn't know all the ins and outs and the connections and all the people that had done it. Joey was honestly amazingly kind from the very beginning. He was never anything but loving and sweet. He never had a sense of like, hey kid, let me show you how to do this. He always spoke, which I really appreciated. He really spoke from a place of, this is what I've experienced. But it may not be what you experience. So, you got to make your own choices, and you have to love your own life, and you have to find your own way through it. He would help whenever he could. He would sort of take your hand and guide you through it a little bit, but he was never bossy. He was never that guy that was like, I've done all this and, my way's the right way now, 'cause I've lived it all. And he had lived a long life at that point. I mean, when we started, he had done a lot of stuff. He had been in the business for a while. He'd worked with a lot of people. For fans of his, if they go back through his body of work and go back through his IMDb page, it's literally, it's like it's a who's who of people that you've ever heard of, and Joey has worked with all of them. I mean, just every single person. But he was amazing. I mean, he just brought so much life to what he was given. He wasn't necessarily written the best stuff. I mean, he was the guy that owned the Peach Pit. And so we would come in sometimes and he had very repetitive, mega burger, 2 mega burgers, but it's like
shake,
sort of,
right?
It was sort of the same stuff. We going vanilla today, or we going with strawberry?
Right.
The peach pie is fresh. He didn't have a lot to work with sometimes, and and it never showed. He never complained about it. He never was on set going, I can't believe I'm saying this again. He just, every single take, every single run was just the consummate professional. And he was just a great guide I felt, for a young actor like myself to aspire to be on some level. I mean, he really set the tone for me. He and Luke really set the tone for me of the type of person, the type of life that I wanted to live, and the type of person that I wanted to be, no matter what was going on in life. And he was an amazing man. He really was. And for people that didn't get a chance to meet him, I'm sorry for that, because he was, I'm so blessed to the core to have spent as much time with him as I did, and love him the way that I did, and be loved by him the way that I was.
I'm curious, man. There is this thing about 90210 where there was some behind the scenes stuff happening, right? There was the drama on 90210 and then the behind the scenes drama on 90210.
Right.
What was Joe like when some of that chaos was going on? Was he someone that would laugh it off with you? Would he say, don't take it? Like, if he had heard that you were going through some stuff, I'm sure everybody did, right?
Yeah. That was kind of unavoidable. It was,
right.
It was that age for us. It was that part of life. He was, with me, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know for me, he was the type that he would never call out what was going on or talk about what he had read or what he had heard. He was always just kind. He would always just give me a big hug, and I always made me feel like he was there and that he loved me no matter what was going on, which was great. It was really for me, and I think for a lot of kids, sometimes when adults are speaking, you tune them out a little bit. You're like, oh, I don't want to hear this. And I think he,
especially then in the 90s
yeah,
when
yeah.
drama's going on and you're in it, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And he was, he instinctually, I think, knew that. And so he had a very sort of soft, loving, caring approach with everyone, where he wasn't an adult. I never looked at him as like, oh, he's, he's separate from us. He's an adult from us. Like, he was really one of the group. And when we saw him, we all treated each other. We all treated him exactly the way we treated each other. It was always like, hey, Joe, good to see you, man. We'd get on set and we would laugh with him, and he'd have an amazing energy, and he'd always be joking, and he would always be jovial and really fun to be around. And he was just, I mean, you could see it on his face in scenes. And you have to think, I mean, he was again saying a lot of the same lines repetitively from episode to episode. And he just loved life. He loved being on the set. He loved being around everybody. And he loved being a positive energy, no matter what was going on. And now, especially now after the fact, you hear some of the stuff that was going on in his life and the things that we knew about, and not easy things, not easy stuff for somebody to just kind of bounce through in as loving a way as he did. But he just never brought any of his life experiences to work. He really knew, like, oh, this is the place where I need to be professional and I need to be loving. And he made a point of doing that no matter what was going on. I mean, even in shooting the ridiculous opening title
Credits.
scenes
Yeah.
of us on the stool doing the turn. He always, watch all of them. He always looked so happy to be there. He was always so loving and so kind. And he was that way with everyone, with all cast, all crew. I mean, front office, but if he happened to be walking through the casting office while people were in there, he would stop and say hello to everybody. And he was always just such a nice man to everyone.
The last time we see him on 90210 in the universe of 90210 is he walks Donna down to the wedding. It's it's kind of I don't mean to give a spoiler alert in case someone doesn't know that.
Oh, right, yeah. In case 30 years later somebody hasn't watched
not
that
aware that happened. So
right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But so I mean that must have been a touching moment for you all, because he was somebody that was a part of, from the first season on to the end. He was a core cast member.
Yeah.
And he did have scenes at times where he would give David some advice, or would go beyond the Mega Burger stuff, and they would start giving him some really good scenes with you all.
Right.
And he
Right.
felt like this kind of guy that was doing that maybe behind, on the actual scenes, behind the scenes as
Behind
well.
the scenes, yeah. He was always giving little bits of advice, but not in a sense of like, this is what I think you should do. He would always sort of bring it back around to things that he had experienced. So you as an outsider could look at it from that perspective. And it was always easier. Like, it's always easier to give somebody else advice than to take that same advice yourself. You always see somebody else's relationships or their friendships or whatever, and you go, I wish I wouldn't do that. That's ridiculous.
What you got to do is right. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then in the meantime, you have like 15 friends that are just completely living
Right.
in your house and
Sure.
robbing you blind, and you're like, oh, they're fine. So he would always, with me, he would always talk to me and guide me through things with a sense of perspective. He would always tie the things back to him and talk about, when I was younger and I went through something very similar. So then you sort of had an outside perspective of it, and you go, what, that makes a lot of sense. It was a cool perspective to have. It was really helpful, because it was really, I mean, that time for us it was hard because there was nobody else that could really relate to what it was that we were going through. And the fact that he was there as long as he was, and he played such an integral part of our cast and our stories and what it is we were doing. And he was so much like a father and a big brother and all of that within the cast, on the show and off behind the scenes. That it was he really took on that persona with us in a very gentle, thoughtful way. He always, you could tell he was thinking about his approach to things and how to help us through stuff. He took it seriously. For as fun and as fun loving as he was a very thoughtful individual. And he always, I think, took great pride in being able to be who he was for us, at least for me. I can't speak for anybody else. But for me, I could tell that he really, really thought about what it is he was saying and what he was doing. So nothing was sort of like off the cuff, and it was advice where I was like, oh, whatever, Joe,
Right.
like it was, he would say little things, or just, he could even say things just with a touch or with a hug. He was a very physical person. So it was always, I always had a very, very touchy, lovey, huggy relationship with Joe. Just a very warm person to have around. And there's something about having that with people, like the people in your life that you've had that with, there's a connection and there's a thing with them that you might not have, that you most likely don't have with people that you don't have that physical connection with. For me, physical touch is when I meet people, I'm a hugger. I'm not a handshaker. Like I like to hug people. I like to make them feel warm instantly. I like to feel warm with them instantly. And I like to get right into it. I don't like that getting to know dating phase. It's that just has always bothered me, and it's always been like, there's got to be a quicker way.
Let's cut to the chase
here.
Yeah,
like I can't go on 4 dates with you just to be friends. Like that's not, that's ridiculous.
Right.
So, but I learned a lot of that from Joe. He was very much the same way. I think the very first time I met him, he hugged me, and so right away you sort of, it relieves the tension, and you feel like, oh, this is nice. It's really nice seeing this person. And then when I'd see him again, I'd be excited because I had this amazing connection with him the first time. So I would look forward to seeing him again and giving him another hug, and how have you been? And we'd sort of get into conversation, and then it just sort of grew naturally. But man, what an amazing man. What a terrible loss. But I feel so blessed to have worked with him, to have had 10 amazing years with him. He was a good guy.
I want to ask you one more thing. We're all at the age, there's this sense of 90210 fans, like, well, we all grew up together, right? Like, even though you were in Van Nuys and I was in New Jersey, but there's this sense, right? But we're all going through a lot of things. We just talked at the top of this about the loss of these 3 people that you knew in your life. And I guess my question I want to ask is, how do you get through this phase of your life? Like, if you come to this point and you're someone that's a fan that's listening, and you're going through you lost your own personal Nat, and you lost Nat, what is it? What advice would you give people that are going through these changes,
that are losing people that they've spent most of their lives with?
Yeah. How are you dealing with some of this?
Honestly, I try to, because otherwise I get way too emotional and way too affected by it. I try and really reflect on the amazing times that I had with people, and I try to celebrate the life that I spent with them instead of focusing on the fact that they're gone, because they're gone, and there's nothing I can do to change that. There's nothing I can do to bring somebody back. There's all I can do is remember what made me love them as much as I did in the first place. And I'm lucky enough, the podcast that I do, we did these couple lives, and Joey came to one of them, and I hadn't seen him for a while. And so fans have been reaching out and sending pictures from that of Joe and I together, and video and things like that. And I've been trying to post that stuff just so fans could really get a sense of who he was compared to just the character.
Yes.
But I think at the end of the day, what should keep someone going is the fond memory that you have of someone that you've lost, because it wouldn't mean that much to you if the memories weren't amazing. So look back at them all, look at pictures, think of times, think of the feeling of being around them and touching them. And again, it's all you have. So you can either waste the valuable time that you have in mourning someone in thinking about the loss of them, or thinking about the things that were amazing and what an amazing relationship and time that you had. Same thing with Jessica and with Denise. Amazing people. We were really lucky on our show. We had an amazing crew of people. We had an amazing group of people, and everyone did their job with such pride and love and kindness. And we were all together for so long in Van Nuys, as you've mentioned. We were in this like remote sort of location, but we all just loved each other. We would have done anything for each other, and it's such a blessing. I don't know if the industry is necessarily the same. I'm sure it's the same for some casts and some people that work together. And they know the ones that are on shows with people where they've got that sort of connection and that sense of family, they understand that it's a rarity. It's rare that you get a group of people together that are all sort of on the same road that you are, on the same path that you're on. And so you all hold hands and just travel it together. And our show was that. It was that for 10 years.
Yeah. This has been great, guys, catching up and seeing all of you and reliving this stuff. I mean, all three people that I got to know. Jessica, we had Denise on our podcast too, and we did that Zoom with Joey, and it's been just great to be a part of this universe. And I know as a fan, like as I said to you guys earlier, like you really made a difference in your work. And I think a lot of people are looking for a place to go right now when they're dealing with their own loss and whatnot. And the fact that they have Beverly Hills 90210 and what we were just talking about is so important, because it's a place that is always there for them. So it's really beautiful what you guys did, and this conversation's been really awesome too.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, we have to say thank you to you also for bringing us all back together. I mean, this has led me to appreciate this whole experience on a whole other level. I mean, getting to know people again.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Pete.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, Pete.
Just wanted to follow up on what Brian said there. This is some tough times. I'm a lot like all you guys, right? So I'm your age and grew up watching Beverly Hills 90210 and seen some family members go and have been going through stuff like everybody else. And I really want this podcast to be a place for all of you, for all of us to remember this show through the show and remember that we have each other. So I hope that was really a lot of fun because it was a lot of fun for me. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening to it. And we'll be back next week with more Beverly Hills 90210 show. And we've got some really exciting things coming in September. So we will see everybody next week.